Netroots! Netroots! What's going on, Netroots? My friends, before I begin, I have to share something I think we all mutually agree. I miss Obama. And in moments like this, when our country is divided, when our democracy is shaken to its core, when so many families are struggling just to get by, I miss Obama. I miss her husband too. But while we may miss great leaders, we cannot wait for them, because democracy is not a spectator sport. It's a contact sport, and we must get involved. We must get engaged. We must get ourselves in the game, and we must make sure that we knock the doors, we organize our communities, we challenge injustice, we defend truth, and fight for the people that we may never meet. And that is why you are all here. You didn't come to Netroots Nation because it was easy. You came because you understand something that too many people have forgotten. The future is not something we inherit. The future is something we build. We build it because no parent should have to choose between filling out a prescription or putting food on the table. We build it because every child deserves to grow up in a neighborhood with a good school, where they can walk to school with parents that are making a living wage, working 40 hours a week and not 80 hours a week. I'm the son of a single parent. My mom raised my brother and me by herself, and she worked those 80 hours a week. And I can tell you this, as we are building the future, I know something that is so important. History teaches us something powerful. Every great victory in America began because ordinary people decided they were no longer willing to accept things as they were. The labor movement, women's suffrage, civil rights, marriage equality, none of those victories started in the halls of power. They started in rooms just like this one, with people like you. So as you leave here today, I need you to take notes. Don't post, organize. Don't just hope, build. Because generations from now, people are going to ask, what did we do when democracy was challenged? And let us answer this. We showed up. We got in the game. We fought for one each other, and together we moved this country forward. Our goal here is to help you leave with fresh ideas, new relationships, and a renewed sense of purpose. You see, this is just the starting point. The real work begins once you head to your homes. The next movement isn't what happened here in Philly. The next movement begins when we carry these lessons back to our communities to organize, build, and to fight back. Thank you, Netroots Nation. Travel safely, keep organizing, keep believing, and guess what? Next year, I will see you in Denver, Colorado, July 8th through the 10th. Follow Netroots on social media. Stay up to date, and I will see you next year in the Rocky Mountain State. Have a great one, everybody.
What does it look like to engage the next generation of progressives and build a movement that lasts? Moderating this conversation is content creator Barrett Adair, joined by U.S. Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland's 8th Congressional District, U.S. Representative Maxwell Frost of Florida's 10th Congressional District, and founder and CEO of Dream for America, William He.
I'm gonna look back on this when I'm in my nursing home and say I knew that brother when. Oh, thank you so much. My son, he's 28. He's gonna be like, really? Yes.
All right. Hi, everybody.
He's gonna be mad.
Hey.
Thanks for showing up, and thanks for all your hard work. I know a lot of you are probably traveling back home to go win some elections this year, so thank you very much. I'm Bear to Dare. I had cuter shoes planned for this panel. I had multiple witnesses to that effect, but unfortunately the strap broke, so we're in the sneakers. I just wanted to get that out of the way.
It's like an iPhone 800,
I'm
so
really
I'm
happy
sorry.
to be joined by our panelists today. And I would love to get started with a round of introductions. If we can start with you, William, and then go down the line.
Hey everybody, my name is William He. I am 19 years old, can you believe it? I am from the maybe great state of Texas, minus the politics, and I am the founder and CEO of Dream for America. What we're building is the left's counter to Turning Point USA. And also one other message I want to say while I'm up here, go Spurs. No.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. I'm Congressman Maxwell Frost. I represent Florida's 10th Congressional District in the United States Congress. I am not 19 years old. I'm 29, but it's good to be here.
I'm Maxwell's colleague in Congress, Jamie Raskin from Maryland's beautiful 8th Congressional District. And I am 19 myself.
All right, y'all. Well, let's get started. So I'm a really cool moderator. Anybody can answer any of these questions unless I specifically state otherwise. But there has been a lot of coverage about young voters shifting a little more to the right in recent years. I would love to know if you've found that to be true personally in your work, and if so, how you plan to combat that.
Yeah, I guess I could go first. I think so. I mean, we saw it in 2024. Young voters shifted 30 points to the right. Trump won young men for the first time in decades. And our biggest losses were with young African-American men, young Hispanic men, young Asian American men. And so I think so. But I think that's also the result of a decades-long gambit by the right to spend billions of dollars to engage with young voters 365 days a year and indoctrinate them. And I think that's one of the biggest things that what we're lacking is the always-on campaign and us fully resourcing young organizations like mine to talk to young people.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think part of the thing here, too, is there's a difference between young people went Republican and young people voted for the Republican candidate in that year. I don't think there's a huge shift to the right and to the Republican Party from young people that's going to last a long time, hopefully. But in essence, Donald Trump became the counterculture in this last election. And, young people hate the establishment. They hate the way politics operate right now. And a lot of them do not feel represented by either party. And Donald Trump was speaking the language of outrage, of faux populism, of this isn't meant to work out for you and for young people. And so elect me to office and we'll fix it all for you. Obviously, it was all BS. But it's a real poignant message, especially at a time where it is uniquely difficult to be a young person trying to navigate society, trying to build wealth, trying to get a house. I mean, buying a house, that's not even, it's like a figment. It's like, that's never gonna happen. You could barely afford to rent. And so I think he spoke that language, and that's why, the Republican nominee got that much of the youth vote. He didn't win it, but they got pretty close. But I think, to what you said, it's so important. The right wing has been investing in year-round operations for young people for a while. And it's this party-adjacent infrastructure that's so important. You gotta give people different options for a political home. Not everyone's gonna wanna be a college Democrat. We love them, that's okay, but not everyone wants to do that. Some people are gonna wanna organize with Dream for America or the Sunrise Movement or the Dream Defenders or whatever it is. And part of the problem is the democratic infrastructure has a hard time giving legitimacy and resources to organizations that aren't necessarily fully aligned with the party infrastructure. And that's a problem. We have to be willing, to see if we're generally walking in the same direction, we're on the same team. And it's more than just lip service, but it's about how do we legitimize your operation by making sure our candidates are going to your events and talking to your people, et cetera, and how are we shifting funding to go to your organizations as well.
So the politics abhors a vacuum, and if we're not out there organizing young people on college and high school campuses, the right wing with their propaganda and their disinformation is going to move in and do it. And that's what we've seen. So we need to counter that, supplant it, and defeat it with organizing of progressive movements and organizations all over America. And we need that both for the creation of a new generation of progressive organizers and leaders. That's what our Democracy Summer project is all about, that Maxwell and I do. But we also need it for the transformation of the Democratic Party, because we need that infusion of new ideas and new energy, new idealism, and new blood from all of the young people who are out there. So that's why I came to the conference. I wanted to help to spread the word about our project called Democracy Summer, with high school age, college age, apprentice age kids all over America. We're operating in every state, and I hope everybody gets the chance to check it out, because it's going to be really important this summer. Last summer we had 1,000 young people, and this summer we're hoping for 2,500 or 3,000 young people to join us.
So in terms of doing the hard work of actually organizing and motivating potential young voters, what actual tactics and strategies have you seen be successful in that? I would love it if the people who came out to our panel had some tangible actions that they can take and bring back to their workplaces.
Yeah, I think three things. Number one, if you want to reach young people, you need to have an authentic message of heart and of hope, whatever that might be, right? Whether it is running on corruption, or whether it's on an economic agenda, or whatever it might be. But you have to believe what you're saying, and I think you have to be positive about it. Be a happy warrior. Secondly, the person doing the messaging has to be, I think, a young person. I mean, so often do I see, like, politicians or 60-year-olds try to talk to people like me, and it just doesn't really land. Or they do like these TikTok dances. Please stop with the TikTok dances, all right? Please. And I think the third biggest thing is just be a normal person. I think people are looking for authenticity in this time. They're looking for a message of hope, and I think they want more young people to do it. So that's my three pieces of advice. Be authentic, be young, and be hopeful. And no more TikTok dances.
I think what you're running on really matters to young people. And I don't think it's just how you deliver the message or who delivers it, but also, like, what is the message? I think a lot about Mayor Mamdani's race, and a lot of people, their takeaway from it was, yeah, we got to do more videos. and I think they're missing the point. The fact of the matter is, young people see a political system that's inherently corrupt. They see loads of corporate money going into it. They see there's no action on housing, gun violence, healthcare, this and that. Then all of our money is sent overseas to kill innocent people, and it's all this stuff going on at the same time. And when that happens to you, or something in your life happens, you go one of two ways. It either drives you more into apathy or it drives you into action. Having political leaders who actually have solutions that are direct to the point, easy to understand, it could fundamentally change your life. That is the difference. You can make all the videos you want in the world, but if you don't have a message that people remember and a message that cuts through, then you're not going to win. And this is something a debate we're engaged in right now. It's like, what's the House Democratic message for the election? And the thing I'm saying is, we got to stick away from like these broad value statements that we don't have much credibility on anyway. We're going to lower the cost of living. What does that mean? We're going to fight corruption. Okay, there's corporate money in both parties and all this. But if we have a very specific message about what we're going to do, and it connects to what young people are going through, which is, it's easy. Everything's too expensive and nobody has any money. If we're able to speak to that, and then I think people are more likely, especially young people, to survive with our candidacies and the work that we're doing. The last thing I'll say that I think is really important is figuring out ways that we can mesh both culture and advocacy in politics. That's where the real power is. Mm-hmm. And most social movements that have really made a change in this country are when there's been a blurred line between the culture and politics. And it's a fine line, and it can become very cringy really fast. If you don't do it in an authentic way, like what you were saying. So, for me, I don't know much about sports. I'm not a sport guy. I went to art school. It was like High School Musical except black people and Latinos. And So I do a music festival that every year in my district where 90% of the people who come to it have never been to a political event before, but they're coming to see their favorite artists. And in between the sets, we speak to them about the issues that we care about, and all the booths are local organizations that they can volunteer with. I know I'm spending my own campaign money on this, and I know that I'm losing a ton of potential volunteers to other organizations, but I don't see it as a loss because they're still involved in the political infrastructure of Orlando, Florida, and that's what the event is about. And so I'm not saying a music festival will save us, but imagine if all elected officials across the country use their campaign accounts to engage in year-round organizing where they can engage with their base and use that to go help other candidates down ballot and ballot initiatives and stuff like this. And this is the whole purpose of Democracy Summer, which is the program that Jamie found. I like to call it, it's like a gateway drug into year-round organizing. You know, Jamie and his team create the program, the curriculum, everything like that, and they make it easy for members of Congress to pay young people to be a part of this program for the summer. And I think it's just such a great thing, and we need more politicians to spend their damn money to organize locally all the time. And I think we'd win a lot more if we did that.
Yeah. So let me follow up on Max's point about the Democracy Summer curriculum. So what we do is we invite the young people to come in, and then we have a class that we teach, and Heather Cox Richardson is part of it, Benny Thompson is part of it, Maxwell Frost is part of it, AOC is part of it, and we're teaching about the historical struggle for the right to vote and for democracy and freedom in America. And then it leads up to what is going on today and how can everybody be engaged. So one of our speakers who comes is Mark Elias, who's a great lawyer for the right to vote and for democracy in the country. And Sherilyn Ifill comes and she talks about trying to defend the Constitution and voting rights against the onslaught from the Roberts Court and from MAGA. Now, I think young people need to hear a context for the struggles that are going on today. And so when we started Democracy Summer, John Lewis, may he rest in peace, used to kick us off. Before that, Bob Moses, who founded the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, in the South, used to kick us off. People have got to understand that what we're going through today is linked to the struggles of the past. And that is something that can give people a sense of confidence and a sense of hope that we're going to be able to get through this thing together, and that there are older people who want to help, who want to be part of this process. And just like we're looking to you, you can look to us in order to get through this nightmare and take back democracy and freedom as the real journey of America.
So I'd love to hear from William on this one, but I'm sure our other panelists might have some thoughts here. William, you founded Dream for America. You're the largest pro-democracy youth movement in the country. You also openly bill yourself as a turning point for the left. What do you think are Turning Point's biggest accomplishments in their space? And what sort of strategies or tactics do you think made it successful? How do you think we can actually practically create that on the left?
Yeah. Well, I think their biggest accomplishment is using fear and hatred and intolerance and rallying millions of young people towards the cause of Christian nationalism and crypto-fascism. They have built a movement with billions or hundreds of millions of dollars to do just that. That being said, and, intangibly, their, I think, biggest accomplishment is really that they can fill rooms, they can create spaces for young people to, as Congressman Frost was saying, right, people coming in, presidential candidates, they want to talk to these young conservatives. They want to get in these rooms and talk to young people because they built these spaces where young voices were mattered. And I think that's the product of the thousands of chapters. They do all these conferences. They have all this entire media operation. And so the lessons I guess we could learn from that, I think, is at least with my organization, right? What we've done is, so I started when I was just 16. I'm 19 now, and since then we've just hit 1 billion views actually on social media. We've got 50 chapters now across 23 states, 600 schools in the pipeline across all 50 states, and we're doing all these events to make sure that young people hear the gospel of democracy, right? I mean, we stand on the shoulders, things are bad now, but we stand on the shoulders of giants of so many other young people, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, who have done the work because they just cared about this country. They were patriots too. They wanted to make this country a better place, right? Civil rights, gay marriage, you name it. And I think the biggest, most important thing out of that is that, I mean, one of my favorite things I get to do is I get to travel around the country and I get to talk to young people, and the thing that I'm hearing is that people are sick and tired of this government and of the corruption they're seeing, and left, right, liberal or conservative, I think people are waking up to the reality of how corrupt our system of politics is, and that people are hungry for change. And I think one of the biggest things, for example, Trump is down 70 points with young voters, but we're only ahead by 10 in the generic ballot, right? We have to fix that. And I yearn for the day where young people are, voting 95% or 100% for Democrats. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but.
No, solid to me. Any other thoughts?
I mean, just organizing has changed a lot. And I don't purport to have all the answers. I mean, I'll give you a story. During the Kamala Harris campaign, I was pulled into a meeting with a group of campus organizers. I won't say what campus, but, and they were like, can you come in and encourage them because they're feeling really depressed about the election? And honestly, I mean, maybe I was in a bubble. I don't know about you, but October of that year, I thought we were going to win. I mean, and I was traveling and doing rallies, and I felt pretty good about it. And I went into the meeting, and I was like, what's up? What's going on? And they were like, Turning Point USA. They all said together. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, they're hosting the biggest parties, these huge events. The presence on this campus is immense. It's all low bar activities where if you agree with one thing, that might be enough to pull you in and bring you into the system where it's a low bar for that engagement, and then you get into the online engagement and that ecosystem they've built, and you're being thrusted between online stuff and in-person stuff. And all this is going on, and we're at the student union giving out stale pizza and asking people to sign commit to vote cards. And it feels like we're not, it feels like they're operating at a different level than us. And I'm someone who comes from organizing and being a field director. I was like, there's nothing wrong with commit to vote cards. But it's so true. Organizing has changed, and I don't have all the answers for us. I think there's a lot of great people doing work online and figuring out how to activate people online. But the thing we really all have to continue to figure out is how do we build an ecosystem where people can feel like they're part of our movement, whether it's in person or online. And we don't value one thing more than the other because both are so important. But none of that matters if our candidates don't run on policies that young people see themselves represented in. And I think that's really important, and I think we all broadly agree on that. If you're not running on making sure everyone has health care as a human right, housing as a human right, making sure our money isn't, spent killing people in other countries, all this stuff. If you're not running on that, I just think you're gonna have a hard time connecting with young people, and you can have a brand that does that maybe online, but at the end of the day, I think it won't hit in the same way. So just organizing has changed a lot. I think there's just a lot more work we all have to do on the left to figure out ways that we can work together a little bit more and figure out what does organizing look like nowadays, because I do believe it has changed a lot just in the last 10 years.
So my first couple full-time jobs in politics were in the youth organizing space in particular, and this is something that that really stands out to me now that I've been working in politics for about a decade and have seen kind of what the broader electorate looks like compared to young people specifically. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like today there are really specific issues that young people care about significantly more in comparison to the electorate overall? And do you feel like our elected officials and our candidates have an obligation to prioritize those things if they want to win over those voters, and also just if they are being future thinking?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy. Next.
Yeah. But I think, what comes to mind, I think a lot of people in my generation are feeling really apathetic and disillusioned right now. Young people are watching the collapse of our democracy through our phones and through our screens. We saw the killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good and even Charlie Kirk live through our phones. right? I mean, there are young boys and young girls who are seeing the denigration of our institutions and our courts and our democracy and our voting rights and are seeing their school shot up and seeing climate change and they can't afford a house and the billionaires are buying up all the land and the list just goes on and on and on. But the through line, I think, all of that is, I think people are really searching for answers. And one thing that the right has done really well is offer, although I think really stupid ones, but offer answers on why that is. Whether it is, you know, all of your problems are trans people or women or immigrants or gay people, which, by the way, happy Pride Month. But ally, you know. But I think young people are searching for answers, and I think, like what Congressman Frost said, it's about what you're running on. And in my conversations, I get to travel across the country, in my conversations with people, I think people are really concerned about, at the end of the day, how can I afford things? My gas, my car, my school, right? And does my government work for me and not the other way around? And I think that so many young people, if we can offer a vision, an affirmative vision about that, I think so many young people are going to come to our side.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're pretty easy, you know? Don't support genocide. Make sure, have an agenda to make sure that people can afford their rent. You know, housing is a human right. Healthcare is a human right. I think we all know, you know, we all hear what like young people are talking about. And the fact that you brought this up is we see trauma on our phones every day. And in fact, this is part of what I think connects our you know, I think our generation is very similar to baby boomers, actually. And I'm talking about baby boomers when they were our age. A lot of war, a lot of trauma, a lot of organizing due to that. And there's similarities between our generations coming up. We're actually both the most politically active generations in our age brackets, which I find very interesting. And I think a lot of it has to do with war and conditions not being good at home, seeing our money being sent to that, and then asking the question, like, what's going on? And being angry about it. And that radicalizes people, and it can push them to support someone like Donald Trump when maybe they never considered themselves to be right-wing. I'll tell you, in Florida, we have a candidate running for governor named James Fishback. And I hate that I hate him. Yeah, dude, he's such a loser. But he'll have one video go viral about something we care about, right? Gaza. And a lot of people will follow him and support him, not understanding that he's like a racist and he's like a really bad person. But because our algorithms can be so specific and really lock you into something, you might never see any of his racist shit ever in your life, but you'll see the one thing that maybe you agree with. And that's dangerous. It's really dangerous. And so this is part of the reason why it's important for our candidates to be loud and bold about things that maybe might not be popular in DC. Maybe it's gonna get you uninvited from a few fancy dinners or fundraisers, but like 80% of the people in your district agree with you on it. And I think that, I think that's the answer.
I believe this generation, at least from the young people that I know from my family and from Democracy Summer, this generation is strongly opposed to war, militarism, and the military-industrial complex and what they're doing to our country. And this is a generation that has got to rediscover and redefine what democracy and freedom mean. You know, John Dewey said about democracy, the only solution to the ills of democracy is more democracy. Mm-hmm. And what we're suffering from today are all of the impediments and obstacles to democracy. So we've got to open it up. We need a constitutional amendment guaranteeing the right to vote against all voter suppression tactics in the country. One of the things I agree with Donald Trump about is statehood, and not for Canada, not for Greenland, not for Panama, but for Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. We got millions of disenfranchised people. And the freedom agenda is an agenda right at the heart of this generation's concerns, because we've got tens of millions of young American women who have no right to choose in basically the southern half of the United States. And like Lincoln said, the nation could not survive half slave and half free. I don't think that we're going to be able to survive half pro-choice and half theocrat. We've got to declare the right of everybody to health care in America.
All right, well, we have got precious little time left, but I would love to take these last moments. If there's anything you want to plug, any way that people can get involved with Dream for America, with Democracy Summer, love to hand it over.
Yeah, best way to get involved is sign up on our website to start a chapter, dreamforamerica.org. Or if you're on the older side, the biggest thing for us right now is resources to support our students on the ground, so you can make a tax-deductible contribution at dreamforamerica.org/donate.
I just want to thank you all for being here. I know it's a difficult time, and sometimes it's hard to wake up in the morning, especially when you're in the work, but we're all in this together. And like Maya Angelou said, I come as one, I stand as 10,000. We're each other's 10,000. So love you guys, and thank you for being here.
Yeah. Check out Democracy Summer online. You can go to jamieraskin.org for more information. And outside, we've got posters, we got T-shirts, we got all kinds of Democracy Summer stuff. So check it out and spread the word. This is the summer that we need America's young generation to rise up. And there are a lot of us in the middle age and beyond who are with you guys. And we're there to organize with you, galvanize with you, mobilize with you. Hang tough, everybody. Hang tough.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you all for coming.
Well done.
Oh, okay.
We doing a photo?
Oh, we're doing a photo? Okay. Great. Thanks. Oh. All right. Do we end up that way?
Modus Theater creates autobiographical performances that challenge injustice through story. Please welcome Nan Seymour, performing her monologue from the Modus Theater project, What Love Requires.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. It's really a blessing to be with you in this room. The therapist told me the best thing you can do for your child is imagine their bright future. Imagine their bright future. Believe me, I wanted to. But how could I begin? It was August of 2012, and my 16-year-old had just come home from her third visit to a psychiatric hospital in less than a year. Despite the mandatory meetings between psychiatrists, therapists, and myself to formulate safety plans for her, all I knew for certain was that nothing was safe. Her repeated attempts to end her life had left me trembling and desperate for any future at all. I was a single mom who didn't know another parent with a transgender kid. Not one. I searched until I found one book of true stories written by parents with transgender children, but all of the stories ended badly for both parents and kids. How could I imagine a bright future? I couldn't even begin to see it. Without a map or a model, the best that I could do was kind of stumble toward it in the dark. When my vibrantly curious, history-loving kid dropped out of high school, my heart plummeted. She barely left her room, let alone the house. That is, until she started smoking. Whenever she lit up, she went out to the front porch. Some neighbors and family members felt compelled to remind me about the dangers of cigarettes, just in case I missed the warning labels. But I was relieved to see my kid outside and still breathing. Call me when it could kill her today, I thought. Call me then. Meanwhile, my daughter was still alive and incrementally moving toward becoming herself. This required one quiet act of courage after another. When she asked me for help to get her hormone replacement therapy, I found a short list of doctors online, recommended doctors online, and called the first 3. Each time I had to explain to the person answering what it even means to be transgender, and each time I did, I was met with stammering or silence. When I saw that the next doc on the list was located in the Mormon neighborhood I'd grown up in, I quit dialing. I let my head fall to the table. Desperate, the next day, I drove to the Pride Center at the university and called them from their parking lot, crying. Even though neither my daughter nor I were students, they kindly invited me in and referred me to the very same doc I hadn't dared to call. And to my surprise, the only trans-affirming care provider in all of Utah and Wyoming at that time was right there in my childhood neighborhood. My daughter began her medical transition and soon after accomplished her social transition. She named herself Beatrice, after Dante's protagonist who serves as a guide out of hell. She chose the name equally for B. Arthur of the Golden Girls, a tall woman with great humor, heart, and dignity. I was delighted to have a daughter. We went to the hairstylist and shopped for pretty dresses together. She asked to borrow my clothes and jewelry, and whenever she liked something of mine, I gave it to her. I remember the first time I saw her admire herself in our full-length mirror. She twirled, and her dress rippled out into a wave. At last, I saw her bright future taking a shape. Beatrice started dating. She fell in and out of love. She moved out of our house and moved back. Eventually, she decided to move to another state on her own and make a home in Tucson, Arizona. I knew then that she was leaving the nest for good to finish that essential work of growing up. On a return visit, she called me from a halfway point along the drive and proclaimed, "Right now, I'm smoking my last cigarette." I also laughed. I was proud of her for trying, but not at all convinced. I saw a rough week ahead. True to her nature, she arrived with a precise plan for negotiating withdrawals. When her hands needed something to do, she would occupy them on her phone, learning German from Duolingo. When she had an intense physical craving, she planned to disrupt it by eating an entire raw jalapeno. After a couple days at home, she spoke German exclusively. And on several occasions, she did, in fact, consume an entire jalapeno. As promised, it was disruptive. There was swearing, gasping, choking, a lot of laughter. To my amazement, her plan worked, and she quit smoking. And I knew then that I was not only watching my daughter choose to live, but watching her opt in for the long haul. Soon after, she fell in love with Ellery, a willowy, non-binary student of mathematics, studying and working towards their PhD. "They are smarter than me," Beatrice confided, and I've never heard her say that about anybody else. A few years later, on May 21st of 2022, Beatrice and Ellery got married at Grace St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Tucson. They were encouraged to co-create their liturgy. A reading from Albert Einstein began Ellery's contribution. For the sequence hymn, my daughter chose Die Gedanken sind frei, a resistance anthem celebrating free thought. While popular during student revolutions of 1848 and then again in anti-Nazi movements, this might have been the one and only time that song's been sung at a wedding. Wedding guests included my Mormon cousins, Ellery's Trump allegiant father, and Jewish step-grandparents who flew in all the way from Florida. Ellery, who usually rocks a t-shirt and shorts, donned a gossamer white gown which paired perfectly with Beatrice's burgundy velvet dress. As they processed toward the altar, flower girls scattered rose petals on their path. And framed by stained glass windows, a priest in full vestments proclaimed them wed. This was a bright future I could never have imagined in 2012. I wish that I could travel back in time to whisper sweetly and confidently in my own ear, someday your kid will get married and people will rise to cheer. Someday your kid will get married and people will rise to cheer. But there's no way I would have believed that. And yet, here I am telling you now that my daughter married the love of her life. And when she did, over 100 jubilant people rose to their feet in exuberant applause. In preparing for this event, I recalled many stories. So why did I choose this one? I chose it to remember that in the darkest, most terrifying time of my life, a bright future awaited that defied my imagination. I chose it because it's darker again out there, and sometimes in here. The support center that led Beatrice and countless others to life-saving, affirming care is now closed, shut down by Utah lawmakers who now even ban the words diversity, equity, and inclusion. They ban the words, so say them again: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our kids are not just marginalized, they're targeted in coordinated attacks. And I don't know how not to be afraid. But I do know how to lean towards life with all of my might. I've done it before, but this time it's different. This time I know that I am not alone. I know that we are not alone. Here we are in this same room, which proves we know how to find each other. And no one is coming to save us, but look around. Look around this room. Here we are together to lift each other up and to defend our children. So what can we do now for all of those kids whose lives are at stake? We can fiercely and tenaciously lean toward their bright future. We can get behind it with all of our weight. We can disrupt, we can stand up, we can advocate, and this is what love requires. I came here today to do it with you, so tell me, are you with me? Are you with me? Are you with me? Thank you.
The fight for voting rights is far from over. Moderating this conversation is lawyer, political commentator, and content creator Elizabeth Booker Houston, joined by Tennessee State Representative Justin J. Pearson of District 86 and U.S. Representative Nikema Williams of Georgia's 5th Congressional District.
Can't see nothing. I know the lights. Well, thank you all so much for being here for this conversation. Thank you, Representative Justin J. Pearson. Thank you, Congresswoman Nikema Williams. It is very Southern on the stage right now.
Absolutely, as it should be.
Since all roads lead to the South, but we are grateful. We are grateful to be right here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the love and support that Philly has shown us. So thank you all so much, Philly, and for everybody at Netroots. and we're going to have a good conversation. And so to kick it off and get it started, we're looking at 250 years of America, right, coming up. Why the hell would y'all as black people want to serve this country? That's my first question.
So you want me to just jump in? Is that where we are?
Because we always have people say like, yeah, you know, we often as black folks, we are always giving love to a country that doesn't necessarily love us back, and to even a party that isn't necessarily loving us back, but that's the vehicle that we have as black people in order to move forward. So I'm gonna start with you, Congresswoman. Why do you continue to serve in this capacity?
I think the simplest way to put it is this country belongs to all of us, y'all.
That's right.
And it's up to us to continue to speak up and be engaged and involved in so many different ways. Then it includes my service as a black Southern woman in the United States House of Representatives. So when you hear the people pushing back, that means that our voices are being heard. That means that sometimes they're getting a little afraid of more of us being represented at the table. And so we have an obligation to continue to be engaged. Last night I was walking around, it was my 16th wedding anniversary, y'all.
Oh, congratulations.
So I was like strolling around Philly with my hubby, and I saw all of these statues and everything commemorating 250 years. 250 years later, we're still fighting for black representation to be fair in this country. We're not asking for more, just fairness. And so I know that I have an obligation to continue doing this work, to continue to show up in spaces like this, because I know I've been in the fight with so many of you in this room, and we've got more work to do, y'all. So let's not give up, because there are too many people counting on us, and that's why I continue to show up.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Yes. Representative.
Listen,
my fellow Memphian.
Absolutely. M-Town, Big Memphis,
Hey.
on stage at Netroots.
Say it, man.
With the movement. So glad to be here with you, and so honored and privileged to be on this stage with y'all. Listen, the reason that I believe in public service, the reason I am still committed to this country and wear my USA flag is because this is our country. It was the blood and the work of our ancestors that created it, that built it. We're the economic foundation and also the fuel that made America into the country and as powerful as it currently is. But it is also people who come from the South, people who understand the struggles of oppression and suppression that have continued to fight to make America more of a democracy. Anytime it has made progress is because we have constructed it. It has not been because of the goodwill of anybody. And I think in this moment, in this time, serving in office, I'm obviously running for the United States Congress, District 9 in Tennessee. So hoping to join our amazing Congresswoman here. It is because the vision that we want for the future is still worth fighting for. And it's worth sacrificing for and showing up for and doing everything that we possibly can to make it more real, even though we're not there yet.
Yes, I love these answers. Gives me a lot of hope. And as we're talking about hope and looking forward, I know we are all ready. I'm ready for these midterms to come through, and I'm ready to take back the House and the Senate. I am ready for that.
Name it and claim it.
Name it and claim it. But also, we know that there's been some stagnation. There's been frustration with politicians not really seeing their seats in their moment as a time to actually build something new rather than just keep the status quo. So I'm going to ask you both, and I'm going to start with Congresswoman again. What are some of the non-negotiables that you see the Democrats having to do day one when we've got the House and the Senate back to move forward, not just keep things where they've been?
So I remind my colleagues all the time that we cannot negotiate on the backs of people.
Yes.
And that's what happens so often when you hear there's a side door deal or there's something happening, you'll find out about it later. We're negotiating on the backs of people who need us most. And I refuse to do that ever. But the one thing that we have to be clear on when we're coming to these tables, I'm wearing my John Lewis Good Trouble shirt today. I represent Georgia's fighting 5th Congressional District because I understand that when we fight for free and fair access to the ballot, when we stand up for voting rights, it makes every other issue that we care about possible. So if you care about economic justice, you've got to stand up for voting rights. If you care about reproductive justice, you've got to stand up for voting rights. If you care about workers' rights, you've got to stand up for voting rights. If you care about environmental justice, you've got to stand up for voting rights. No matter what that issue is, voting rights is the basis of it all. So that is my non-negotiable. We should have got rid of the filibuster in the first place to make sure that we could pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. It didn't happen when we were in the majority, but we've got to make sure that we stand strong and we remind people that the people always have the final say, and that's why voting is so important. That's why they're coming to attack our voices at the ballot box, because they understand that if we show up and vote, all of these other issues we can take care of.
Yes.
I mean, I have so many thoughts here, but let's be clear about something. When we were in the majority, we didn't pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement
In the House.
In the House. And that's a problem. It isn't enough to have us with Democrats by our name, and then we're not pushing policies of progress that improve the quality of lives for everybody, because we're getting the same corporate dollars that other people are getting. We're getting the same billionaires paying Republicans to run and Democrats to run. We've got to have some values that people can follow and align with and stick to it all the way. You can't be halfway caring about justice on one hand, saying, you know, you're against war, and on the other hand, you got stocks in Lockheed Martin. We as a party have to be consistent. It isn't a purity test, it isn't a perfectionist test, but it is making sure that we have principles. And we got to hold this administration accountable. This is a white supremacist who is a domestic terrorist and a supporter of insurrectionists leading the United States of America. So we have to fight. We've got to fight for a $25 minimum wage. We got to pass Medicare for all, because people are choosing to die rather than go in debt in the richest country in the world that overnight can come up with billions of dollars to kill innocent people in Iran, but people in my district can't afford to eat.
$1 billion a day.
A day, that's
for
it,
this
a
unauthorized
day,
war.
$1 billion a day. So we got to keep our priorities straight, and we have to make sure that we fight these billionaires who are building data centers in communities like Memphis and Mississippi as their own projects to make them richer, while the rest of our communities deal with poor air quality, poor water, and poor soil. Those are the things we have to push, and I think across the political spectrum, we are seeing where folks are feeling the pain, feeling the struggle, and they want people who are principled to fight for them. That's what we as a party and as a people have to offer consistently, and not yield, not bow down to any special interest, not bow down to anything that has been for what we know should be.
Now, thank you. Thank you both. And you brought up data centers, and you brought up that data center in the place where we both were born, South Memphis. Let's talk about the Afrikaner scammer for a minute. That man built like a Cybertruck. Let's talk about Elon Musk. And let's talk about the fact that these data centers are popping up all over the country in service of billionaires just like him, who are part of these white supremacist systems, a white nationalist. Can you explain why it is so important for everybody on the left, and I mean all the politicians right now, to get on board with combating data centers?
Absolutely. If you are a Democrat and you are supporting the most exploitative and extractive industry of artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and automation, you should not be a part of this party. We have to set a higher standard that we do not work for the billionaire class, we fight for the working class. And here's why. The data centers that are coming up all across our world, not just in America, but all across the world, are going to ultimately use more energy than we as humans completely consume in our entirety. Over the next 7 to 10 years, 15 to 30% of jobs are going to be gone due to artificial general intelligence and robotics. And there are some folks in big tech who say, well, jobs are going to be replaced and going to be created. That is not true for this form of technology. And many people who helped to found this technology, like Mustafa Suleyman, who wrote The Coming Wave, tell us this truth. And the reality is, if we don't have something like a federal jobs guarantee to make sure that our communities are still able to have some dignity of some form of work, when this happens, we are going to be putting ourselves in not just a precarious position, but a dangerous position, because you're going to have millions of people who are without work, without access to opportunity, and you're going to have other folks who are flying spaceships because they want to feel what it's like to be weightless, while building and buying houses in other parts of the world to try and escape the harm that they have created. This is a unifying issue, and you're seeing it in rural areas. You're seeing it in urban areas where people are saying we need a moratorium. We need to pause. We need regulation. In fact, I saw an AI company say that we need to slow this thing down because the artificial intelligence is educating itself to be able to do things that humans were not prepared for it to do. This is an existential crisis But it is also a very real environmental crisis, as you're articulating, because they're using fresh drinking water to cool these plants. Water, fresh drinking water in aquifers, y'all, is not infinite. But it should be going to humans, not to billion-dollar corporations' computers. The air pollution in our hometown, we're seeing more air pollution.
In a part of Memphis that already has the highest rate of severe and fatal asthma cases of children across the country. Even
across the
before
country,
this.
with a cancer risk that's 4.1 times the national average in 18 toxic release inventory facilities, where black communities are being targeted. And if you are black, African American, or Latino, you are 75% of us live within 1 mile of a toxic waste facility today. That is the status quo. So this is just worsening. Right? Let's be very clear about that. But we are being exploited and our democratic institutions are failing. Even when we sometimes have Democrats in power who are mayors and city councilors and county commissioners, they're getting duped because they're saying, well, there's tax money. But when you're an elected official, you think about the consequences, not just in the potential benefits of capital that you get from taxes, but also what is the harm of environmental racism. We did the research with a PhD from Harvard University, Dr. Michael Cork, and we have estimated that dozens of people are likely to die due to the pollution from Elon Musk's XAI facility, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars lost in economic benefit per year. Those are the real consequences. So this is where our activation, our education, and our work to make sure that the people who represent us fight for us. Not just talk about it, but are truly about serving our communities and not the interests of the billionaires and those at the top.
Yes, thank you. And Congresswoman, I want to pull it back a bit and go back to our beginning of our discussion talking about John Lewis Voting Rights Act, voting rights especially because you are in the fighting fifth in Georgia. And we are seeing what's happening across the South as soon as the Louisiana versus Calais decision came down from the Supreme Court to gut Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Can you tell me exactly, I mean, this is probably an obvious answer, your reaction to that in this moment, but also, what is the path you see forward to fight against this?
So I think we've all seen what is happening across the South, but I want to be clear that this is not a uniquely Southern issue. And we see that it's an attack on black representation, but this is not a black issue. We all have to make sure that we're showing up in this moment because, again, this is not black or Southern. This impacts all of us who care about fair access and who care about this country moving forward for the next 250 years. So Georgia is going into a special session on June 17th to redraw all of our congressional lines, but they said, hold my beer, Tennessee, because we want to make sure that we also redraw all of our state legislative lines.
They did.
So Georgia is redrawing not just the congressional, but the state house and the state senate lines on June 17th. And get this part, it's a 3-day special session. Starts on June 17th, it'll end on June 19th. So they're literally going to vote to take away black representation on Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly how they feel about black representation in this country. So the path forward is showing up, y'all. I don't believe in giving up. I didn't get here because people before me gave up. John Lewis didn't give blood on the Edmund Pettus Bridge for us to give up. I'm serving in Congress in this district that is the cradle of the civil rights movement. And so every day I know that I have a responsibility, even when it gets hard, Justin, to keep showing up anyway. And I know that's what you've done. We've seen you getting in people's faces.
What he said? He said, boy.
We've seen you.
That's my brother.
And we all got to get a little more of that good trouble in us, y'all.
Right.
John Lewis told us that this is not the struggle of a day, a week, or a month. This is the struggle of a lifetime.
That's right.
And each generation has an obligation to do our part. I'm here to do my part. I know that you wouldn't be here if you weren't here to do your part. We're doing our part, y'all, but we've got to do it together because I know that this is our civil rights movement. So when young people ask me, they're like, Congresswoman, I wasn't born back then. I don't know about that. I'm not from the South. Why do you talk about the civil rights movement? Because history is repeating itself.
That's right.
So if you ever wonder what you would have done during the civil rights movement, this is your chance to find out because this is our civil rights movement, y'all.
This is it. And so on that same note, Justin, I want to go to something. I'm sorry, Representative Pearson. Let me be formal. I want to go back to talking about what happened in Memphis. What happened in Nashville? It was a day. And what they did in slicing and dicing our beloved hometown, the only majority black congressional district in the state of Tennessee and one of the largest blackest cities in America. And I want to comment on the fact that now there are folks who are pulling back on support, pulling back on funding because they claim that your race is unwinnable. And I personally don't believe that. I think that's voter suppression. I don't think that's true, but I want to hear your response to that.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we're going to win. That's what you got to know. You can rig the map. I said, you made it more difficult. You didn't make it impossible. That's where you got it wrong. And so we are rallying folks all across the country, building a 1,000-person volunteer team. Half of them are in this room. Go to votejustinj.com to join us. We have phone banking, we've got door knocking, we've got canvassing. And the reality is it is winnable. If it was a district when President Obama was running, he would have won by 8 points. Our last race that actually invested resources was nearly a tie between Democrats and Republicans. And it's allowed us an opportunity to go across 15 counties with the same message. The status quo is not working for you.
That's right.
Your gas, your groceries, your lives are unaffordable because the people who are instead trying to focus on culture wars don't want you to look up and see who's really in control of these systems that are oppressing us. And so actually launching tomorrow, we got a 15-county tour across new District 9.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't
right?
stop. We're going to Shelby County, Williams, all the way up to Williamson County. We're going to barbershops and barns. We are meeting people where they are, and that level of proximity is something that they have not experienced, right? A lot of people have started to take the South for granted, and you feel this, even in our own party, right? But 50% of black people live in the South. Leaving the South to somehow just deal with the powers of white supremacy and patriarchy and be like, well, we sure hate that happens, but let's go figure it out in some other places, is inherently playing into a racist playbook. Our organizing, our investment now more than ever needs to be in Georgia, needs to be in Tennessee, needs to stay in South Carolina. We need to invest in the South. We can't rest on our laurels in Massachusetts and New York and California. Love everybody from there, my wife from LA, but the fight for the future of our country is in the South, and this is our freedom summer.
This is it.
And so go on June 17th to Georgia. We're working with our team to get there. Come to Tennessee and knock some doors and meet some people who've never had anybody knock on their door before and say, look, the issues that you care about, there's somebody who's running who wants to address them. Because we can still win, but it requires investment and commitment. And I'm sorry, I love all the viral moments and that's all good, but we need folks in the fight. There's no room on the sideline. So come November, you should be looking at the race you supported, the race you knocked doors for, the race you donated to, the race you invested in. That's how serious this moment is. If you just watch it and pray, you're part of the problem.
That's right.
That's right.
Get in the fight. Join the teams because we can still win and we must still fight in the South.
Yes. Music to my ears. See, I love that. I always said I'm never moving above the Mason-Dixon. I went to Maryland, but I was like, I ain't going further. I love y'all. Again, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Beautiful. I like sweet tea. So Congresswoman, I want to talk a bit about, before we close out with like a final little word from you both, I want to talk about the fact that we are embarking upon, again, the anniversary of when Roe versus Wade was overturned, and your state was the site of some really tragic results of those abortion restrictions, specifically for black women. I'm of course speaking about Adriana Smith, who is not the only black woman, but it's been heartbreaking. And I want to give you a moment to talk about how important it is for us to restore abortion rights, especially when it comes to black maternal health.
So y'all, let me paint this picture for you. In Georgia, more black women die within 1 year of giving birth than they do in third world countries. More black women die within 1 year of giving birth than in third world countries. That's what it means when people use this term maternal mortality. And so we just need to make it clear to people of what's at stake. So I've introduced a series of bills. One of them is the Blood Pressure Matters Act. So one of the things that keeps causing these rising maternal mortality rates, which is very preventable, is postpartum preeclampsia. And I suffered from that when I have a 10-year-old now, so it's been a little while, y'all. But I was in the hospital giving birth to my Carter cakes, and the nurses came in. They'd already clipped my band, sending me home, and her face was like, oh my gosh, and I didn't know what was going on. But my blood pressure was dangerously high, and I was readmitted to the hospital. and all because she saw my blood pressure. But that does not happen in so many hospitals when they're discharging you across the country. And so in Georgia, over half of our counties don't have an OBGYN. So who's taking care of these mamas that want to give birth? Let alone when you make the decision that parenthood just isn't in the cards for you right now. And so the Blood Pressure Matters Act would require insurance companies that we're already paying, they're already getting our money, it will require them to send every mom home with a blood pressure cuff so that they can check their blood pressure on a regular basis, because you can't leave a hospital without having a car seat to put your baby in, because they want to make sure the baby's safe, but let's make sure that the mamas are safe too.
That's right.
So there are so many things we can do. That's just one practical example of legislation that I've introduced. We have it as a part of the Momnibus Act, but I mean, we can have a whole sidebar on maternal mortality, so y'all catch me later, because I got a lot to say on that issue. But I know that we have a limited amount of time, but y'all, we've got to continue to stand up for each other, because our future literally depends on it. And that's why I do this work, because there are people counting on me who don't even know that they need me to fight for them.
That's right. Thank you. And so with this last minute that we have, a quick 30 seconds each, I would love if you each could take a moment and just leave folks with a word of hope and something they can do, because in this moment people feel very paralyzed. So Representative, would you like me to start with you?
I don't want to go after her. Thank you so much again, Elizabeth, and thank you, Congresswoman, for the opportunity to be here with you. My hope is in us. Our campaign slogan is, "It's about us." It's in our ability to stand to meet this moment that we are fortunately here for. I don't know why God did it, but we all alive right now, which means we have an opportunity to change the trajectory of our communities and our country. And so let us not be weary in well-doing, because I do believe that our hope is in our hands. And in this moment, we've got to put our hands on this democracy. So go to votejustinj.com, sign up to volunteer. We need you. Do 1 hour of phone banking, that's all I'm asking for. Reach out to 5 people in your network and make sure they're registered to vote. And then when it's time to go vote, make sure they do it. The people in power don't want us to believe that we are powerful.
But we are.
But we are. That's why they keep trying to stop us.
That's right.
And the question that I think we are being asked is, have they done enough to make us quit?
Hell no.
No!
Never.
So it's time to put this democracy in our hands and in our shoes, knock some doors, make some phone calls, and fight like hell for the living. Because this is our country, this is our time, this is our democracy, and we ain't going nowhere.
That's right. And Congresswoman, just a final word of hope to send off to the
I think
people.
it's time to pass the collection plate now, Justin.
Absolutely.
Literally.
We Southerners.
I need y'all to remember that getting into good trouble is not just a slogan, y'all. John Lewis meant it when he said, get into good trouble, necessary trouble. And this is our time. You've got to find a way to get in the way. It's not always comfortable. Sometimes you're going to be standing alone. But this is our moment. This is our civil rights movement. And it's up to us how this chapter ends.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you all so much. We are so grateful to Netroots, to everyone for being here. Please, another round of applause for Congresswoman Nikema Williams from the Fighting Fifth in Georgia. And another round of applause for Representative Justin J. Pearson in Tennessee, running for the Congressional 9th District.
Yes. Thank y'all.
Please welcome founder and owner of the Effective Communication Coach, Denise Thomas.
All right, good-looking people, before we leave, first of all, good evening, Netroots Nation. Is my mic not working? Is it on now? My mother would be like, no one ever told me they can't hear me. Listen, let me just say this, Netroots Nation. First and foremost, before I give you your closing remarks, I want to thank each of you, and I want you to lean in when I say this, because many times we don't hear the words thank you. On behalf of Anthony Robinson and his entire amazing team, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. And this is going to be a real quick close, but it's important that everything that you have consumed and heard over the past 2 days, you have a call to action, because that's what we do. We're action-oriented leaders. Now, in 2018, the late, great Congressman John Lewis tweeted the following: "Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful. Be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or even a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime. And never, my fellow humans, never be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble." Now, as each of us prepare to head home, again, I've been honored to pour into you a question. Now, for those that were with me at City Winery, y'all will get this when I say this. Pull out your phones. We're going to take some notes here. I want to ask you, as you're walking out that door, what are you leaving with? I'm not talking about the badge. I'm not talking about the swag. I'm not talking about all the context, not even your notes. I'm asking, what is the one idea, the one strategy, the one connection, or the one lesson that you are committed to putting into action when you return home? Because the true measure, Netroots Nation, is not what happened here in the city of brotherly love, also known as Philadelphia. It is up to each of us in this room to get real complete with what happens next. What happens when each of us return to our communities? And I'm going to say that word again because we've started to lose sight of what that truly means: community. When we continue organizing, when we continue educating, when we continue advocating, when we continue just like you did over the past 2 days, show up. So again, before you walk out these doors, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and pull out your phone. And in the spirit of inclusion, we don't judge. If you got a flip phone, that's okay. And in the phone, I want you to make a note, and I want you to answer this question, please, because I can already feel the synergy of greatness in this room. And I know that many of us are GSDs. Anybody know what a GSD is? We get stuff done. What is one action that I will take in the next 30 days because of what I gained, learned, and consumed at Netroots Nation 2026? I'm just asking you for one action. Now, next to that note in your phone, I want you to give yourself a deadline of commitment. Because commitments without actions are simply good intentions. There's nothing wrong with good intentions, but guess what? We didn't come here for just good intentions. We came here for actions. We came here to make a measurable and impactful difference. So as we look ahead to the month of November, please let me make this clear. Our mission, Netroots Nation, is clear. Return home. Please be committed to do your part. Have the uncomfortable conversation. Make that courageous call. Knock on the door. Register that uncertain voter. Listen to them. Lead with these a little bit more than you lead with these. Lead with inquiry and support the candidate that truly, truly cares, not through words, but through actions about your community, because you deserve it. Mobilize your community. Every action that each of us in this room can demonstrate it matters. We are standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. And many of us in this room wouldn't be in this room if it had not been for our ancestors. So guess what? You're obligated. It's not a negotiable. The fight for justice does not end after an election. The fight for equality, and more importantly, equity, it doesn't end after an election. The work requires all of us 24/7, 365, and we have to, in the words of the great Apollo Creed, as he looked into Rocky Balboa's eyes right here in the city of Philadelphia, there is no tomorrow. So tonight, I'm gonna leave with you 3 words, and I want you to repeat after me. The first word is go. The second word is fight, and the third word is win. On the count of 3, we're gonna create that magnanimous, infectious synergy, and we're gonna say it as a unified group of individuals. On the count of 3, go, fight, win. 1, 2, 3. Go, fight, win. One more time. Go, fight, win. Listen, I love y'all so much. Go back to your communities and continue spreading this love. Fight, just like Congressman Lewis taught us. Do the good fight. Win the good fight. Fight for the future that you deserve and that you believe in. And win not just for yourselves, but for the generations that are counting on us to get this right, just as we depended on the generations that we're standing on. Thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for staying in the good fight. Safe travels home, and we will see you next year in Denver, Colorado. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us for the next 20 years of Netroots built this foundation, and you are what the next 20 years looks like. Stay connected with the NN26 hashtag and join us next year in Denver.